Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. I am your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. I'm a psychiatrist in private practice and faculty member at the University of Virginia. Each week, my guests and I talk about meaningful coincidences, synchronicity, and serendipity. We discuss synchronicity from its many, many perspectives, including spiritually, practically, and statistically. Why? To increase your connection to coincidences so that you can benefit from coincidence awareness in your daily life. I've written a book also called Connecting with Coincidence. Put that phrase, Connecting with Coincidence, in your web browser to find my book, my Psychology Today blog, my website, and social media sites. And if you want to know how sensitive you are to coincidences, go to my website to take the Weird Coincidence Survey, and you'll get some idea about your sensitivity to coincidences. That is, connecting with coincidence. Our guest today is Neil Killion. He comes to us from Sydney, Australia, where he's staying up kind of early in the morning to join us in this program, and I appreciate your having done that, Neil. He is a former psychologist, management consultant who, for around 20 years, founded and ran his own outplacement company in Sydney. His clients included many blue-chip companies and large government authorities. His discovery of life cycles theory happened by accident, one of those happy accidents that we love to call serendipity, when he was doing an ad hoc validation study of Daniel Levinson's mid-career identity. Since 2005, he has devoted himself to the research and development of this theory of 12-year symbolic cycles in life based on biographical analysis. Please describe Daniel Levinson's work as it applies to what you're doing.
Okay, well, Daniel Levinson was one of the two instruments that I used in outplacement counselling when I take people who were, their job had been made redundant, and our company's role was to provide career counselling and job search support. Now, when I discussed the stages of the career that people were in, I used Levinson's theory. He had terms such as the first adult career stage, the transition stage, the mid-career stage, and the late career stage, things like that. I used to gather some of that data on an ad hoc basis, and I then decided to crunch some of the numbers and see how my sample, which is taken from Sydney, Australia, used to line up with what he talked about his age range, and that was sometime in the mid to late 30s.
And that mid to late 30s is what you're saying most of your clients were in when you saw them?
Not necessarily. It was a spread of ages, but I should have said that the mid-career identity is that stage in the mid to late 30s. And I simply wanted to see whether this was as important a phase in people's career lives as the Levinson theory would hold up. I wanted to see whether that was a stage in which people moved out from under mentors, they achieved something in their own right that would usher in what he called the mid-career identity.
And I would ask you to elaborate more on that, because for our listeners, because you just started to describe it, that these people are maybe mentoring and then move out from underneath the mentor, and that is a significant change in their lives. Could you describe anything else that characterized this mid-career identity shift?
Yes. What it is the some sort of achievement by which the person will ultimately become known in their careers. Now, it doesn't happen always this way, because for some people they achieve earlier, but for a lot of cases, their career is marked by what the primary reputation might be. So I was looking for things that you could consider high points and achievements and reputation, whole of career reputation making events.
And you say it doesn't happen with everybody, so it's a probabilistic thing that you're talking about, that where there's a likelihood of people emerging somehow with their own identity as their own professional career identity.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. When I say not everyone, I mean I've got to look at exception cases or things where people may have hit a high point of achievement early on. But essentially, the theory that I developed from all this is meant to cover all lives. So
Yeah.
my journey, which has been a long one, has been taking a very small sample of people who were going through, usually as executives or professionals, and seeing whether it applied to a wider range of people. And for that, I was using usually publicly available data. So these are people with a profile sufficient for me to study and see whether the result that I was picking up on one particular year out of this area was being picked up with other people that is something that could readily be validated.
Yeah, and and the number 12 is key to what you're talking about. The ages 12, 24, 36, and so on.
Yes, correct. What I started with is this central age of 36. That's where I had the unusual finding, if you like. That
Yeah.
was the coincidence that started it all for me. I thought, why am I picking up 1 year? I could be picking up anything from, 34, 5, 37, 8, 9, but I was just picking up this 12-month period when all these key events tended to be happening.
I just wanted to think about my own career and age 36. And what I did at age 36 was get married, and I was still working on a psychotherapy book. It was it was something that I got some notoriety about years later, but it was still something in progress that I'd started before I was 36 and continued after 36. So I'm trying to see how, in my life, was there a peak of something at age 36? And I can't think of that. It was part of a sequence of that mid-career of trying to establish myself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can't readily put all profiles against this. Sometimes I've got to examine negative evidence or I've got to examine a lack of evidence. Um, the only thing I would like to do with cases such as yours is look at some objective biodata to see what I could pick up once I started to examine it. But I'd like to take a little time to explain the main features of the theory to people, if that's okay with yourself.
Oh, that's where we are. Go ahead.
Okay, so what life cycles theory is, in 3 words for people, it's 12-year cycles. It's that simple. The sentence that would define that is that it's life or lives studied that are lived in symbolically repeating 12-year cycles using detailed biographical analysis and no use of the occult. So that's no astrology or numerology. The theory itself, which I've developed over the last 10 plus years, has over 50 terms and icons in it, but I really want to just introduce 3 concepts to people. And they're the key concepts. The first is this central first year of a 12-year cycle. So that's looking at adult ages of 24, 36 and 48. I call it the year of revolution because that's literally what it seems to be in people's lives. It means that we are starting something. Usually events are happening almost outside of our control during this period, and that the events that get ushered in can affect us for the remaining 12 years. And as I just mentioned, the theory originally started because I found so many matches with the key year of 36. The second concept is 7 years after this key year, I noticed another interesting coincidence. It's a year in which we get change happening again, a change of direction. This one I call the year of broken pathways, because once again, the term means exactly what it says. So I look for some form of change and uphill challenge that the person's handed that won't be resolved in a hurry. So they're the adult ages of 19 and 31, etc. So we've got year of revolution, we've got a 7-year period of what I call unbroken forward momentum.
And we're going to have an unbroken forward momentum right now as we come to the end of this segment, and we'll continue with part 3 of what you're describing. You are listening to Connecting with Coincidence with your host Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X Zone Broadcast Network with our guest Neil Killion.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Gwilda Wiyaka's latest book, The Science of Magic Book of Mysteries, Volume 1, is the first book in a series based on her writings that open every episode of the Science of Magic radio show. Drawing on the subject matter of each guest and armed with over 40 years' experience in shamanism, 35 years in alternative health, and degrees in psychology and religious studies, Gwilda introduces relevant and leading-edge information that supports spiritual evolution and personal empowerment. Rich with wisdom and inspirational quotes packaged in digestible segments, this is a book that will pull you from cover to cover. It will also serve as a daily inspirational reading for years to come. The Science of Magic Book of Mysteries, Volume 1 is available at our website, tsompublications.com, amazon.com, and wherever fine books are sold. Back in Victorian England, a famous theologian posed a perplexing riddle. Why are the two top personalities in the Bible tagged with the numbers 7 and 11? Academics agree the answer is found in the stunning discovery of a hitherto secret Bible structure explained in a new book called The Genesis Grid. The discovery is so simple that preschool children could illustrate it. Certain claims are hugely controversial and may offend some, but at the X Zone, we've studied this awesome new book and agree with one expert, and I quote, "These discoveries appear to be beyond coincidence." So who or what hid this wonderful pattern in the Bible, and what might they do next? Find out more, X Zone Nation, and read reviews on www.genesisgrid.co.uk. That's www.genesisgrid.co.uk.
Welcome back to CC with BB, Connecting with Coincidence with Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, and our guest, Neil Killion. And we're talking about life cycles. We're talking about coincidences between numbers and people's behavior. And Neil wanted to talk with me about this, and I'd hear a little bit more from Neil about it, because this is a kind of coincidence in his mind that is not involving the usually emotional responses and personal reactions of people with general synchronicity kind of coincidence. It is something objective and describable, and we're going to go, and other people can see it. We're going to come back to that idea. But Neil, you were telling us about part 3, the broken. You just described the 7-year broken path, and now what's the third one?
Okay, so the third concept is that when you put those two together, the years of revolution and the years of broken pathway, which are the only years I study, that small number of years in a life. So that would equate in the adult sense to the ages of 19, 24, 31, 36, 43, etc. It's what I call the significant years. Now, what I'd like to do for people is to illustrate, because it sounds a bit dry when I'm putting the theory out there. And I just want to take one really well-known example. This is a person that everyone's heard of. That's Napoleon Bonaparte. If we take his life, we see the absolute centrality of this age 36 year. This was a year in which he fought two major battles. The first one, unsuccessful, quite unsuccessful, and that was the Battle of Trafalgar, where he managed to lose 2/3 of the combined French-Spanish fleet to Nelson. And so that was a setback. Now, these setbacks I call moments of frustration that can affect a person at the beginning of the period. Now, it's almost, to me, it's something I equate to like the death of the old cycle, because not 7 weeks later, Napoleon had his greatest ever victory. That was the victory at the Battle of Austerlitz, where he defeated the combined armies of Russia and the Austro-Hungarian Empire in one day. It's noted to be that way by historians. They say that this is Napoleon's greatest achievement. It's something that he himself says he's most proud of. So we have both that objective description and subjective description. Also, I look, believe it or not, for not only one day to alter a whole person's life, but sometimes one spellbinding moment in that one day. And such a moment happened to Napoleon. He was ordering his troops to advance up a hill at the beginning of the day in conditions of a heavy fog. Now, the men decided to follow Napoleon because they believed in whatever he said. And he said, one sharp strike and the war will be over. However, marching up in a fog, you really can't see what's going on. But just when they reached the top of the Pratzen Heights, the sun almost magically broke through. This is a phenomenon that historians talk about, the sun of Austerlitz. I mean, there's even been a book written about it. And it was at that precise moment that the fog lifted. They found themselves right on top of the enemy, and it proved a decisive moment in that battle.
Now, that's a very interesting story from my coincidence ways of thinking. I've heard a story of a guy when he was a teenager in a plane in thick fog, and the instruments couldn't find the landing field, but he had a sense for where to go. And he directed the pilot through the fog to the landing field without having any visual, but an intuitive sense for how to get there. And so that's one part of it. Napoleon may have been able to see through the fog to know where the people were. And then to have the sun come out right at the right time reminds me of this Einstein's people trying to prove Einstein's theory of relativity, or that light bent around the sun. And you needed to have the right time for that, for the sun to be able to be available for the people to take the picture. And it was not available in Africa until when they needed to be able to see it, the fog cleared and there was the sun and they could take the picture.
Yes, indeed.
So there's something parapsychological in what I'd say in what Napoleon could do. The fact that his followers believed in him suggested that they saw in him a capacity that they didn't have, that he could know things in ways that they could not know.
Yes, we'll never know for sure whether he was just bluffing at that moment and really wanted the attack to proceed, or whether he had a particular insight. You know, he would have had left a quote. for that. But
Yes.
sure, why not?
Oh, so go ahead, please.
That effectively gave Napoleon control of Europe in one day. And that period of control lasted for, in an unbroken sense, for 7 years. So we're looking at that exact model, because if those key battles took place in 1805 and you add 7, you end up with 1812, and we all know what happened then. This was Napoleon's ill-fated invasion of Russia. So his own personal broken pathway was his decision, with winter coming on, to march his army into Russia deeper and deeper. Eventually things turned against him, and he lost over 90% of his army through one way or another. And from that moment on, he had the uphill challenge of defending what was left of the empire. And we know that after a couple of years in the Battle of Waterloo, it all came to a conclusion. So that is a really good personal illustration. Now, the second illustration of why I have this notion of cycles repeating is it sets up an exact hypothesis for me to test at his first adult year of 24. Now, when I was writing the book, The Life Cycles Revolution, I decided to do that test as I was writing the book, so it was pretty blind at the time. When I went to the exact same period as Trafalgar and Austerlitz, I discovered at age 24 there was this thing called the Battle of Siege of Toulon, rather. Now, the Siege of Toulon happened at a young age. Napoleon was then just a young artillery major, and the French Republic was only a couple of years old, and he was attempting to end a blockade by the British and Spanish Navy on the city of Toulon, and to attack a fort that they had. Now, a first attempt at such an attack was unsuccessful, and it wasn't executed correctly, as a result of which the British redoubled their efforts and built an even stronger fort that they called Little Gibraltar. Now, Napoleon was unsatisfied. He rode off to Paris. He wanted more military support for his plan. And when a senior officer arrived, he executed it straight away. And at almost the same time, and this is the fascinating thing about the theory, at almost the same time as the Battle of Austerlitz took place, the successful destruction of the fort at Toulon happened. That resulted in an immediate promotion from a mere artillery major to become a brigadier general, and he came to the attention of the elite in Paris. So we're looking at this sense of it being the same military victory, the same moment of setback and frustration first, the same outcome in a positive nature, and the same type of process that he went through. So I'm trying to get across the notion that this would be quite interesting, but you might say, well, that's a one-off case. But my whole career these days is looking at these amazing sequence of cases. I have literally hundreds of cases to support this seemingly improbable model. I've studied lists such as the top 10 people of the 20th century. I've studied things like the recent celebrity deaths over the 2-year period from 2014 to 2016, and I keep coming up with correlations that are in the order of 100% of the people that I study to have largely some type of correlation with one of the significant years, and often with the age of 36, just to give people a feeling for that.
As I listen to this, Neil, you're talking about people who have made major impacts in certain aspects of their lives, because that's who you can get access to from the description you just had. That some people have like more ordinary lives and don't necessarily get out into publicity or written down their experiences the way Napoleon and many of the others that you've studied do. So how much does this apply to ordinary lives? It becomes part of the question I think our listeners will want to know.
Yeah, sure. I would say it would apply exactly the same to ordinary lives as a principle. Of course, the way in which the lives play out is quite different. Uh, in in my life, I often enter into conversations with people and tell them a little bit about the theory, and some people answer me and say, yes, look, 36 in my case was quite a big year. You know, the following events happened. I got a promotion to a new job. We moved locations.
Got it. Now we're coming to the end of this segment, Neil, and I want to be able to continue this comparison. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X Zone Broadcast Network with our guest, Neil Killion.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome back to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, and our guest from Australia, Neil Killion, talking about life cycle coincidences between life cycle events and age. So, Neil, you were telling me about the more regular people out there in the world and how they can report parallels to what you're describing.
Well, yes. Look, one of the things I've done is include a whole chapter in the Life Cycles Revolution of more ordinary lives. I wanted to keep it largely anonymous for those people because often I knew them as friends, etc.
Yeah.
But I looked at those two central areas of relationships and career.
Because
And
mostly you've been talking about career so far. Okay.
yeah, no relationships to that later age of 48 sometimes, and divorce was quite a stat that I picked up. Different ways in which lives can alter. And after all, sometimes one of my friends was an actor who said that he'd been doing TV work, but at the age of 36, he got a call from a Hollywood producer to see whether he'd want to come over and star or take a lesser role, I should say, in one of the movies over there. But he discussed it on the home front, and they decided for the good of the family they wouldn't do that. Now, he got a second call about another opportunity in the same period, but after that, nothing. And his career altered again. So sometimes there's an opportunity there, but it's not always, taken up. But just to illustrate with my own life to people, that would be, I think, not a bad way to do it, because I put my own life out in a public sense in great detail in both books. Because I figure if I can't make the theory fit me, then it's not going to prove itself in a sense to me, and it won't prove itself to anyone else. So,
I'm glad you say make the theory fit you, because when I listen to you, it's like you have a form now. You've got an idea, the 12s and the 7s, and you seem to try to make the life fit in with it. And not that it doesn't, but there's a problem in, like, you like the theory and you want to make it work.
Yes, initially that would be so, but the sheer amount of correlations, as I say, I was getting in publicly available material has caused me to say that the odds on this happening randomly would be astronomical. So, of those 10 most famous people of the 20th century, we're looking at things like the first flight by the Wright brothers in 1903, at Orville's age 36. We're looking at Gandhi at 36 introducing his method satyagraha of peaceful protest for the first time enshrined as the birth of the civil rights movement. We're looking at Einstein. He published the general theory of relativity at 36. Nelson Mandela gave his famous address at the Cliptown conference and unveiled the Freedom Charter and won his reputation as a statesman at 36. If I can produce, let's say, 8 or 9 out of 10 of those cases that fit, I'm looking at something which is extremely improbable to have occurred when I look at the recent celebrity deaths over a 2-year period. I'm looking at an extraordinary number of cases where things fit in the most straightforward way. George Martin, for example, died, at the beginning of that period. He was a producer of all the Beatles music. Now, at 36, he discovered the Beatles by accident because he was petitioned by Brian Epstein and he didn't really want to hire them, etc. The period of time he had the Beatles for, 7 years until they broke up. Again, at 24, he started with Parlophone in the classical music division. 7 years later after that, he moved into comedy records and tried to get more into the pop field. It's those sort of examples that I can do time and time again.
Yeah. And I think of my older son, who at age 36 doesn't have a job right now, but he has 2 kids, and they're looking for a third. How does that fit in with your thinking?
Um, well, you never know. If he is 36, there could be some form of breakthrough. A friend of mine has a 36-year-old son. I think he's just moved through that. And he was interested in music, maybe filmmaking, but he didn't have anything definite on the horizon. And then an opportunity to join an established band came up for him during the period. And he told me about it. He said, "Oh gosh, fancy that." A friend of my son, who I know quite well, got a job at 36. I told him about the theory. He'd read book 1. I mean, he knew all about it. And he said to me, there might be something in that, because the job offer actually came from my son. I was there the moment when, it kind of said, well, I might think about hiring this person. So there's all of these anecdotal examples that I'm surrounded with. I sit here as a theoretician. My job is really to produce what I would regard as scientifically based evidence as I can. I take obituary studies where I look at a set number of obituaries that are produced over a narrow period of time, a couple of weeks. I take just the text of the obituaries to see whether, because they can mention any year at all of significance or none, and I try and see whether I can get matches. Now, some of those matches that I've been able to get in book 1, I covered 40 obituaries to show the number of matches that I was able to get in each one. In this coming book on relationships, I've got an even tighter analysis of 12 obituaries that were taken with no exceptions, and people who didn't have necessarily a high profile, to look for that evidence. So what I'm claiming to do here is to assist the whole community of coincidence study by producing something which is very difficult for people to refute. The mainstream tends to want to refute coincidences. They tend to want to say, look, it's this law of truly large numbers, which says with 7 billion odd people on the planet, weird and wonderful things can happen every day. Now, I want to produce something which is quantifiable, which is testable, where I set up hypotheses, where I examine for negative evidence, where I look at single or even double-blind methods to obtain my samples. So what I'm really aiming to do, Bernie, is to elevate this branch of coincidence studies so that it becomes very difficult for people to just, dismiss it for one reason or another.
Very good, very good. We've talked about, and you've written to me about the difference between what you're doing and the standard kind of synchronicity, where a person has a subjective feeling in response to something that happens in the environment. It's very personal. Yours is descriptive, where people can look at it without having to tune in to what the person's inner experience is. There's a correlation between age and life events, and that's the basics of what you're doing. You can see the age, you can see the life events. And there is a form of coincidence that is just like that, and that's seriality or serial coincidences that Gary Schwartz has written a book about. He calls it super synchronicity, in which he has the same notion that these are observable events, like seeing 15 monkeys within a 3-day period, that you see a series that anybody else could validate. You can take pictures of them, of these monkeys. And that's kind of what you're doing. So there is a subset of coincidences that is like yours, like this seriality one, where it's objective, where it's not, there's no having to look at the feeling or the thoughts of the person inside. And that's an important addition to the way we're thinking about things. Now we have about a minute left in this, and I just want to be able to get us started thinking about how this works, because one of the questions that I am trying to answer about coincidences is, do various explanations for them. How do we explain them? And unfortunately, some people just want one explanation for all coincidences, and that's not right. We've got different ways of explaining different kinds of coincidences. So I'm hoping that we will get into on our next segment just how you explain them, and then how your ideas about life cycles can get expanded into future orientation, so we can think about how these ideas of yours may be helping people, as you did with career planning. And we will do this in the next segment. And we are listening to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, with our guest, Neil Killion.
Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com. The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Oh, welcome back to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Bernie Beitman, MD, and our guest, Neil Killion. And Neil is advancing theory, and my questions for him in this last segment are what are the practical applications of his theory, and just how does he explain these coincidental correlations between age and biographical activity?
Okay. Well, what I would like to do here is say that the self-development aspect of this is to be aware of the cycle and its presence in your life. This is one way in which we can really use the cycle to our advantage. Now, what I'd like to do is describe to people my own situation right now, because I'm in what I would call one of my significant years. It's a year of broken pathways. What has happened is that I've been in this same position before. I'm 67 now. I've been in this position before when I was 55. I've been in this position when I was 43 and 31. As heretical as this sounds, I want people to think of their lives as the one cycle that keeps repeating. So I'm in fact living through the same events that I lived through previously. Now let me illustrate. When I was 55, at around about this exact time of year, I came to be doing a writing course at my university because I had resisted the notion that I could actually write about this in a whole book. I thought, well, I can just explain it to people or perhaps do a quick magazine article. I didn't realise that I really had to set my ideas down in detail. At 43, I went through a change in my company structure where a new group bought out my parent company, and I had to deal with a different CEO that it was based in London at the time, and I had to work out some way of achieving independence from this new group. Now, all of these things represent the uphill challenge for me each time. And when I, for instance, heard about the opportunity to do this interview, I thought to myself, you know, this is right at that exact same time. I'm aware of what might happen, what my uphill challenge is. And it's to become literally better known to a wider audience. And this is the sort of vehicle that's happening. For 7 years, I've been publishing a lot. I've been doing several hundred shorter articles and case studies, 3 books. I've got a community of people who know me and my work, but I really want to reach a wider audience. And this opportunity, interestingly, came about right now. So if you've got this model in mind, you can say to yourself, oh, right, so here I am at that year of revolution. I'm at that key age of 36. What was I doing at 24? You know, what was the process like for me then? And as I've done in both books, I've analysed all my years of revolution, which are rather ordinary. I mean, they're not world-breaking events, but I was able to use them each time as a guideline. It's something I refer to as living in super consciousness. Now,
Living in what? Living in what consciousness?
Super consciousness.
Super consciousness. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm aware that my life also has a structure.
Yeah.
And that structure is rather objective. It sits there, and events tend to happen more or less on time. It's crazy, I know, but being aware as I am of what to expect, I've been just stunned by how much events happen at the time they're meant to happen.
I think that's, I don't know if I'd use the word super consciousness. I go to meta, but it's the same idea that it's a meta perspective. It's above one's life rather than just living it. You have a kind of a roadmap that you're defining about what you might expect at certain ages, and that can be very helpful, because it's what Levinson was trying to do with his book, to give some idea of what to expect in different parts of your life, and you're sharpening that kind of thinking.
Well, exactly. And I'm the first one to put forward a true cycle theory. If you look at all the other theorists like Erickson and Levinson and Gould, they all had stage theories of life with a block of years which people are meant to transition into and out of.
Right.
What I'm talking is an exact cycle pattern that happens.
Yeah, within. It's the same cycle being repeated each time. Yeah.
Exactly. And within a much narrower bandwidth of time. And that phenomenon of your whole life can alter literally in one day. Now, look, if I've got a moment here, Bernie, I think I put forward to you that I could analyse Carl Jung's life by life cycles.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be of any general interest to people.
Right now, I think we only have about 5 minutes left, and I think one thing you answered is the practicality of it. You can anticipate your own life more precisely, more carefully, more clearly in the super consciousness or meta perspective that you're offering. But how come this happens? Why are these cycles existing in our lives?
Okay, this is the question I can't answer. And to some extent, I'm not really interested in answering. I simply want to establish the correlation. I don't want the criticism to come back that correlation does not prove cause. So I don't have a cause. I literally have not come up with anything. People could postulate it's due to the presence of a religious theme. It's a god or an entity that controls somehow. But I don't want to put anything in the middle. You know, I want to be like Occam's razor and produce the simplest, most straightforward answer, is that the correlation exists.
Yes.
And
Now, what about the idea of thinking of these repeated cycles as a spiral rather than just a circle that you're running through again?
Well, I know your life changes. I know, we don't live out the same thing. It's not literally Groundhog Day for us, you know. What I'm saying is there's a different cast of characters and different events, but the themes remain constant.
Yeah. And I think of that as a spiral. In astrology, I think it's Saturn has 7 or 8 year cycles. The same idea that you're talking about. I forget if it's what the numbers were, 7 or 8, but I would envision these experiences as coming back to the same place as you are, but in an advanced state. You're older, but there's a connection. You almost can draw a line as you're doing between age 36, 24, and 12, and 48 and 60. There's something similar at each point in those 12-year periods, and you can look back and then look forward to see what that similarity is and maybe get you some guideline.
Yes, absolutely. And because I'm looking at actual events in your life rather than saying it's caused by some other outside force, like
yes, it's
from the universe. It's just inherent in your life.
It's part of life, as you're saying. It's part. You don't have to talk about a cause. It's just what is.
That's right.
That's that. What I get from this is that each of us, like my son who's age 36 and is getting another, has a possible better job for him that he's interviewed for, that we can anticipate blips or bigger things at certain ages and expect them to happen. So if we expect something to happen at age 36, some kind of life-changing thing, how are we supposed to process that? How do we think about that anticipation in more detail?
The key is we can't make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. There's an element of it being a little bit outside of our control. That
Good.
is open to interpretation.
Yeah.
Why did the sun come through at Austerlitz?
Yes.
Why did somebody decide to take an action at that very same moment? These things are elements that we can be aware of as they're happening. That's why, I refer to it in my terms as superconsciousness. We can be aware of it as it's happening, but we can't make it happen.
And we can have a choice about what to do with what we've got.
Yes.
It happens, and just like other coincidences happen, we can see them. We can, in this case, anticipate them, but then we have some choice, just like your actor friend did, about whether or not to take the opportunity that age 36 is likely and actually did give him.
Correct.
Well, it's very interesting. I needed to be able to find a way to put what you're just talking about together with coincidence studies, and in this last part, I think I got closer as we discussed this. So I appreciate very much the opportunity to hear how you think about this and how it might be useful and where it might fit in, as you suggested, as another category of coincidences. So please keep up the good work, Neil. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks very much, Bernie.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Are you or is someone you know struggling with addictions, depression, anxiety, relationships, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, grief, success, and prosperity? Do you know that your subconscious belief plays a big role in the outcome of your hard work? We can help you permanently change the beliefs that may be the reason for your struggles and failures. We care about getting you the return on your investment and the results you are looking for. We can help you be free of the limitations of your past and in realizing your highest potential. We work with people by phone and Skype. For more information, visit us at www.ritasoman.com. That's www.ritasoman.com. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com, or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464.